Okay, Beruchim Aba'im, welcome to another Wednesday night class in Halebanon, Avenue S, the corner of East 9th. I apologize, it's been a while since we had our Wednesday night class because of the summer months. It's a little bit slow, a little bit quiet, but we'll try to do as much as we can so we don't miss any classes in the summer. We are learning Perashat Hukat, Ba'adat Hashem, Le'ilun Ishmat, the Levavet Sherebi, and all the Sadiqim. Class is sponsored anonymously, thank you so much. We'll start off with the story that there was a very wayward person, a very evil, wicked person in the town that wanted to ask his rabbi, what do I do? How do I do teshuvah? I stole a lot, I kidnapped, I wasn't a kosher person. What do I do? So the rabbi tells him, first of all, you have to return everything you stole. Take the money, put it in tzedakah, and you have to sit down in the Beit Knesset all day and say Tehillim. And this will bring you to teshuvah. Very good. So one day he goes in, he's about to say Tehillim, he sees the rabbi in the shul, in the Beit Knesset. He says to himself, I wonder what the rabbi did that he has to do teshuvah also. This is what he was thinking. Which means teshuvah is a process that we can all tap into, and Borei Olam accepts teshuvah from all of us. Teshuvah is repentance. No matter what you did, HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts your teshuvah. Funny thing is that in this week's Perashat, there was a man, probably the greatest man in Jewish history, that tried to do teshuvah for a one act that he did, and Borei Olam blocked the passage of teshuvah. No path of teshuvah. He tells Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu takes his stick and he hits the rock. It's a very amusing story, one that we cannot comprehend, one that we cannot wrap our fingers around. How is it that Moshe Rabbeinu, he's waiting for the chance, for the opportunity to get into Eretz Israel, because he does something so minute, so small, so delicate. Borei Olam tells him, because of that, you cannot enter the land of Israel. And as much as he tried to do teshuvah for striking the rock, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, you cannot do teshuvah, your sin will always stay forever. We will write in the Torah that you caused this to happen and you cannot enter the land of Israel. So obviously the question is, what was so severe from his sin? What happened? Okay, Borei Olam tells him, speak to the rock, and he hits the rock. In the end of the day, the water came out. In the end of the day, Am Yisrael drank. They were very thirsty. What happened exactly? So we're going to see a few commentaries. And tonight I'd like to speak about a subject that is very sensitive to most of us. It is a character trait that we are very afflicted with. A character trait that sometimes can destroy our life, damage our reputation, damage our families, really put us in a state that nobody wants to be around us. And unfortunate to say that Moshe Rabbeinu himself had this bad character trait. Now, of course, we're not saying it ourselves. We're only saying what the rabbis allow us to say and what the Midrash allows us to say. Rabbi Yitzhak Arama, in a Sefer Akedat Yitzhak, in this week's Perashat, he says like this, Hare shulchan vehare basar vehare sakin lefanenu ve'en lanu pe le'echol. We have the knife, we have the table, we have the meat, but we don't have the mouth to eat. Which means, in the Torah it says what Moshe Rabbeinu did. He struck the rock, he didn't speak to the rock. Everything's there, but we don't understand it. We can't digest it. It makes no sense. We can't comprehend it. Why? Ki mitzvat Hashem leMoshe kituba lefanenu. Whatever is meant to be for Moshe is written. V'ma'aseh asher asa lo ne'alam mineged einenu, and it's clear to see what he did. U'meharon af Hashem mishtomim lebabenu. But how could it be that Borei Olam is so angry? And we're not talking about he's angry about over a regular person. Lo chen abdi Moshe bechol beti ne'emanu. Moshe Rabbeinu is the prime servant of Borei Olam. So from anybody Borei Olam wants to get angry at and mad at, it's not Moshe Rabbeinu. No, Borei Olam is angry at Moshe Rabbeinu, and he continues and he says, "Ve'en itanu perush al ze sheishasachech et haozen biyishuv haketuvim." No matter what you're going to tell me, I will not accept it. This is what the Akedat Yitzhak says. No matter what answer you're going to give me, it doesn't make any sense. This is what he says. In fact, the Midrash, in Midrash Tanhuma, Perashat Vayeshev, brings a pasuk from Tehillim. Tehillim Chaf-He, Perek Chaf-He 25. Lechu hazu mif'alot Elohim nora alila al bnei Adam. Borei Olam sometimes devises and comes up with plots to bring people down. This is what David HaMelech says. Borei Olam sometimes comes up with plots. Alila is a plot, a libel. Sometimes Borei Olam puts us in a situation, a predicament we cannot control, but he's putting us in that situation purposely because there's a greater plan. Listen what the Midrash says. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Korha. Lema hadavar domeh. I'll give you an analogy. Le'mi shemevakesh legaresh et ishto. Person wants to divorce his wife. Katav la get. Now he prepares the get from before. She doesn't know that he's going to give her the get, but he prepares the get. Nechnas lebeto vehaget beado umbakesh alila letena la. And now he has to come up with something. Why do I want to give her the get? Now I want to give her the get, but I got to come up with a reason. Why do I have to give her the get? She's a good woman, but I can't stand the sight of her. I don't want to get married to her anymore. I want a divorce. But what could I do? What could I find against her? Amar la, so he tells her, Mizgili et hakos she'eshteh. I'd like to drink something. Mazgalo, she gives him the cup. Vechevan shenatal hakos miyada. And when he takes the cup from her hand, Amar, he tells her, Sei mi beti, leave my home, you're divorced. Shemazakt li kos posher, because the water is room temperature. Don't you know that I like cold water? Amralo, so she tells him, האם ידעת שאני עתידה למזוק לך כוס פושר, שכתבת הגט והביאתו בידיך? You knew already that I'm going to bring you room temperature water and you were just finding an excuse to divorce me. כך, משה רבנו ובורא עולם. Says the Midrash, same thing happened with Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Already Borei Olam tells Moshe Rabbeinu in Sefer Shemot, Perashat Shemot. Because Moshe Rabbeinu came back to Borei Olam and he complained and he says, you told me I'm going to take Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. I went and he made it harder. And Borei Olam tells him what? Ata tir'eh asher e'aseh lefar'o. You're going to see that Am Yisrael will leave Mitzrayim, but you will not be there to see them enter the land of Israel. Ve'ulam. And now in this week's Perashah, Kevan she'amar lahem Moshe, when Moshe Rabbeinu tells the naggers, the complainers that wanted water, Shim'una hamorim, listen, you rebellious ones. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lachen lo taviu et hakahal hazeh. Therefore you're not bringing them in. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells Borei Olam, but Borei Olam, you already had it prepared and planned that you didn't want me to come in, and now you're finding a small excuse not to let me enter the land of Israel. This is the Midrash. A very mind-boggling Midrash. What in the world is going on over here? Because of a small, minute thing that Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, says the Midrash. That's why he says, Im ken harbe lefanenu het'o shel Moshe nigzar alav shelo yikanes la'aretz. Because of striking the rock? It's like the man that tells his wife, I don't want you anymore. What, you forgot? 50 years we were married. Everything was good. Now all of a sudden, because you had in mind you wanted to divorce me, so you found something against me, that I gave you room temperature water. Same thing with Moshe Rabbeinu and Borei Olam. No matter what it is, by the way, no matter what the excuse is that Borei Olam is trying to pin, if you want to say, against Moshe Rabbeinu, and like I said, we will never understand. But let's try tonight to understand what happened exactly. What was so severe about the striking of the rock? So now let's paint the picture. Let's start the scene. It's the 10th of the Chodesh of Nisan. The last year that Am Yisrael are in Mitzrayim, the 40th year. They're minutes away from entering the land of Israel. What happens? Miriam HaNevi'ah, the sister of Aharon and Moshe, passes away. And of course she passes away. The rock, the Selah that Am Yisrael had in her merit. Now they had a traveling rock wherever they went. No matter what they wanted Coca-Cola, they wanted tea, they wanted coffee, they wanted liquor, they wanted water. Whatever they wanted, they would ask the rock, and the rock would sprout forth whatever liquid they wanted. In any flavor, by the way, mind you. In any flavor they wanted, the rock would give them. Now Miriam, and it only came b'schut Miriam HaNevi'ah. Why? This is not the class. So Miriam passes away, the Selah, the rock goes and hides between all the other rocks. And now Am Yisrael sees Miriam and Nevi'ah is no longer here. They're very thirsty. Misken Moshe and Aharon, they go into the Ohel because they have to sit Shiv'ah over their sister. They're sitting over there. Few minutes in, they start hearing, complaining. We want water. We want to go back to Mitzrayim. What did you do to us? You brought us to the Midbar to die. So Moshe Rabbeinu has no idea what to do. He comes out. He asks Borei Olam, what should I do? He says, no problem. Go speak to the Selah. Speak to the rock and let the rock give forth its water. So now Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't know where the rock is. Why? Because the rock went and hid between all the other rocks. So now he's speaking to this rock, nothing happened. He speaks to this rock, nothing happened. And in the background, what is he hearing? You're a charlatan. You don't even know what to do. Now, remember, this is the new generation. The old generation that witnessed the miracles and came out of Mitzrayim and the splitting of the sea and the man, all that, they passed away. Because 600,000 Jews passed away because of the Alat Meraglim. This is a new generation. They're calling Moshe Rabbeinu, you're a sketch. You have no idea what you're doing. You can't even talk to the rock. You can't do anything. Now Moshe Rabbeinu, because he got so mad, he got so angry, he takes his stick and he hits the rock and he says, Shim'una hamorim. I thought you were a good generation. You're the generation that's going into the land of Israel. You have the merit to enter the holy land of Israel, but you are rebellious people. Morim is mar, bitter people. You're very rebellious against Borei Olam. He hits the rock and he says, Hamina tzela hazeh notzi lachem ma'im. You want me? I can even bring you from this rock. Forget about the rock of Miriam. I can bring you from any rock you want, water. What did he say? Notzi lachem ma'im. We will bring forth water for you. Now who's bringing forth the water? Borei Olam, not Moshe Rabbeinu. We will see an opinion that says because Moshe Rabbeinu took the credit himself, as if he's the one who's bringing out the water from the rock, that's why he was punished. Because right now you are appreciating the emunah and Borei Olam, that only Borei Olam can do everything. You attribute it to a human being, a mortal human being. You thought that you can do something. The emunah was lacking now in Am Yisrael. Because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu can't enter. That's one opinion, but that's not the opinion I want to focus on tonight. So Moshe Rabbeinu, again, he gets angry. He hits the rock. Borei Olam tells him, because you didn't have emunah in me that I can bring out water just by speaking to the rock. That's why you're not bringing Am Yisrael to the land of Israel. Okay. What happens after in this week's Perashat? Not only Miriam passes away, but Aharon also passes away. When? Rosh Chodesh Av. Coming up, by the way, in 3 weeks. 3.5 weeks. Rosh Chodesh Av, Aharon passes away. Now Moshe Rabbeinu is left alone. He doesn't have Miriam. And by the way, we think that Moshe Rabbeinu, okay, so Miriam and Aharon, they're my siblings, okay. We have to understand that he's with them his whole life. Harem Miriam is the one who took care of Moshe Rabbeinu. Without Miriam, Moshe Rabbeinu would not be alive. She made sure that the basket was okay. She made sure that Batya took him. She made sure that Batya gave him back to Yocheved to nurse him. She made sure that he grew up in the house of Yocheved. Miriam was there for Moshe Rabbeinu, older than him by 6 years. She was the oldest because Miriam, Aharon, and Moshe. She was the oldest. She took care of him, so he loved her so much. So right now, he sees his whole life crumbling before his eyes. No Miriam, no Aharon. I can't even enter the land of Israel. What's left of me? We can't help but feel bad for Moshe Rabbeinu. Be'emet. We can't help but feel bad for Moshe Rabbeinu. He comes on the scene at age 40. He's right now 120 years old. His whole life he is waiting to enter the land of Israel. And Borei Olam tells him, you cannot enter the land of Israel. Why? Because he struck the rock instead of speaking. So the Rambam says in the Sefer Moreh Nebuchim, well, before I get to the Moreh Nebuchim, let's look at the Perush HaMishnayot LeHarambam. Now, as you know, we had in Perashat Terumah way back when, and we explained that every character trait, it's good to have Haderech HaEmtza'i. Every character trait, don't be too stingy, and don't give too much tzedakah, right? Everything you have to go, Shvil HaZahav, says the Rambam, the middle of the road. The Rambam says there are 2 character traits that you have to go to the total extreme. No middle of the road. It's not good to have them at all. Number 1 is ga'ava. Ga'ava is haughtiness, arrogance. Not that I have a little ga'ava. No ga'ava at all the way to the extreme. The second one, says Rambam, is midat hakas. This is what we would like to speak about tonight. I know it is a very delicate, sensitive subject because, let's be honest with ourselves, we all get angry. Not sometimes, many times. And we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu tonight in the Perashah Lanetzach, forever and forever, that we must, like the Rambam says, we must stay away from anger. Zero anger. And now it's very hard. Zero anger. If Moshe Rabbeinu got punished for not entering the land of Israel according to the Rambam, because he got angry at Am Yisrael, and the anger caused him to hit the rock instead of speaking, that's Moshe Rabbeinu. Imagine us. Listen to the words of the Rambam. Says the Rambam, V'chit'o alav shalom. This is the Rambam's opinion. Not everybody agrees. But Rambam says, the sin of Moshe Rabbeinu was, Shenata letzad echad meketzavot mima'alot hamidot. You had to, instead of getting angry, you had to get savlanut. You know, it's funny. In Eretz Israel, Israelis love saying the word savlanut. Meanwhile, Israelis are probably the most angriest people on the face of the planet. But what they love saying is savlanut. You think over here in America, by the way, it's not America, by the way, it's only New York. You think in New York, people get angry when it turns green and you don't go the next second, the next millimeter, and they start honking you? In Eretz Israel, forget honking. They'll come out of the car and they start breaking your car if you don't leave. And they say, savlanut. Okay, savlanut. Right? And he says like this. So what? So you know what? So what? So Moshe Rabbeinu got angry. We all get angry. So what's the big deal? He says, what's the big deal? Rambam says, Bedin ha'ishahu Moshe Rabbeinu Hilel Hashem mitbarach. He made a desecration of the name of God, because people say, if Moshe Rabbeinu, the only man who's able to speak to God face to face, peh el peh, and he gets angry, then we could all get angry. What's the big deal? You see, ladies and gentlemen, I always say it in the classes, the higher you are, the more observant and careful you have to be. The more you know, the more you think that you know. It's funny. The more you know, the more you think that the knowledge is all you. So the higher you are in the rungs of ma'alot, of spirituality and holiness and kedusha and borei olam, you have to be very careful not to attribute anything to you. You have to be very careful about every mannerism even. Every act, every gesture, you have to be very careful. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is medakdek with that person. So this is the Rambam's opinion. Fine. Yalkut Shim'oni says like this. This is in Yalkut Shim'oni, Remez Resh Samech Vav. You know, when Borei Olam gave us the Aseret Deberot, well, there were Aseret Deberot, but Borei Olam himself gave us two. I mean, he spoke them, he uttered them. And Moshe Rabbeinu, because Am Yisrael passed away, because it was so astonishing. And Moshe Rabbeinu ended up speaking the other 8. But you know, the first 2 is Anochi Hashem Elohecha. The second one is Lo Yiyeh Lecha Elohim Achirim Al Panai. Says the Midrash, Amar Mor, Anochi Velo Yiyeh Lecha Bedibur Ehad Ne'emaru. I'll explain. Ma she'ena peh yechola ledaber ve'ena ozen yechola lishmoa. So Hashem said, Anochi Hashem Elohecha, and Lo Yiyeh Lecha in English. Anochi Hashem Elohecha, I am your God. Lo Yiyeh Lecha, you shall not have any other gods other than me, besides me. But he said both of them at the same time. Says the Midrash, no one is able to say that. You know how also Zachor ve'Shamor in Aseret Deberot, Zachor Yom Shabbat, Shamor Yom Shabbat, Hashem also said at the same time. Nobody could do that. You cannot say 2 things at the same time. And you cannot hear 2 things at the same time because you always get miscombobulated. You cannot understand 2 things at the same time. So it says the Midrash, Borei Olam said them both at the same time. Let me ask you a question. Okay? Hazak Baruch. And now? So he said them both at the same time. What is it coming to teach me? He said them both at the same time. Very nice. Is there anything God cannot do? He can do everything. So what am I to learn from that God said the both of them at the same time? So we have a Gemara over here. Gemara Shabbat Tav Kof He. Says the Gemara like this. Says the Gemara here. Beautiful. Now listen who says it. Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri Omer. That's his name. Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri. HaMekareya begadav bahamato. One that rips his clothing because he's angry. You know, you have those guys that, it's not enough that they scream, but they have to rip stuff apart, they have to break things, they have to throw things. Ve'hamshaber kelav bahamato. He breaks his his vessels, he breaks his furniture, he breaks his coffee table. Why? Because he's angry. And one that takes his money and rips his money. You're laughing, but people do that. They're insane. They're psychotic. That's what they do because they're not thinking straight. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when a person is afflicted with the bad character trait of anger. He doesn't think straight. He's not thinking anymore. It's the anger inside of him that took control over him. So what does the Gemara says? Yeheh be'ainecha ke'obed abodah zarah. He's just like a person that worships idols. Same exact thing. On the scale, a person that gets angry and a person that worships idols, the same thing. So you know what Hashem is telling us over here? You know why lo yeh lecha and anochi is the same? Because if you really believe that anochi Hashem Elohecha, I am your God, if this thing happened to you, it's meant to happen to you. If you don't believe that, lo yeh lecha Elohim ahirim, it's as if you're worshiping idolatry, idols. Ladies and gentlemen, if you really believe that this parking spot, somebody stole it from you, if you really believe that, then says the Gemara, not me, you are an Obed Abodah Zarah. Because how many times do we say it? If it's yours, nobody could take it away from you. And if you believe that somebody took it away from you, that means you don't believe in the grand divine plan of Borei Olam, in Emunah and Borei Olam. So, says the Gemara, just like a person worshiping Abodah Zarah. What is Abodah Zarah? I don't believe in God. Same exact thing. That's the Ka'as. The Ramban says in the name of Rabbeinu Hananel, no. Like we said earlier, is because Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hamina sela hazeh notzi lachem mayim. Do you want me to bring you out water? No problem. So he attributed the whole nes to him and Aharon. That was a no-no. The Abarbanel says a totally different mahalach, totally different path. He says like this. He says, really, Moshe Rabbeinu shouldn't have entered the land of Israel because of the sin of the spies. Just like Am Yisrael can't enter the land of Israel because of the spies. And who sent the spies? Moshe Rabbeinu. So too, Moshe Rabbeinu cannot enter the land of Israel. But Borei Olam is covering that up. So what is he doing? He's pinning Moshe Rabbeinu with this sin. Like we said earlier, how Borei Olam pins some things and plots some devices and strategies on people. That's what the Barbanel says. His sin was not that he hit the rock. No. Hit the rock, speak to the rock, we don't care. His sin was that he sent the spies, but we're not going to say that, so we'll pin him with hitting the rock. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I'm not going to focus on the Barbanel, not going to focus on the Ramban. I will focus, B'ezrat Hashem, on the Rambam. And again, we repeat, the Rambam says, Midat HaKa'as. Ka'as is the worst trait for a person to have. Not jealousy, not hedonism, not lust, not desire, not cravings, not passion, nothing. The worst traits for a person to have is ka'as. Because when a person gets angry, there is no telling what this person can do. Bar Minan, he is just like an animal. Rabbeinu Ha'ari says, when a person is the father of Kabbalah, when a person gets angry, his neshama leaves him, and the neshama of an animal comes inside of him. An animal gets angry whenever it wants. An animal jumps on its prey. An animal, we talk about not domesticated animals, but even domesticated animals sometimes, you have to be very careful. You remember Siegfried and Roy? Remember those two, I think they were brothers or two friends, that they had a tame tiger, right? You guys are looking at me like you have no idea what I'm talking about. Thank you. It reminds me of, yes, before the break of the classes, that you still had no idea what I'm talking about. But anyway, there were two people, Siegfried, I believe Sigmund or Siegfried and Roy, that's what their names. Long story short, I don't know if they're related to each other or they're best friends, or it doesn't really matter right now. But they have a tame tiger. And this tiger was with them for years in the zoo or different circus events and tricks and whatever. And one day the tiger came and swallowed one of them. Or he bit his head off or something like that. I don't know exactly what the story is. Did he survive or not? I guess stitches, I have no idea. I don't follow up on the Tosafot of the story. But animals are animals. You cannot tame an animal. And when a person gets angry, you cannot tame this person. That's what Rambam is telling us. There is the Gemara. This Gemara is going to open up so many doors for us. in understanding what happened with Moshe Rabbeinu. Says the Gemara, a beautiful story. This Gemara, Masechet Ta'anit, Daf Chav Dalid. In fact, I remember this Gemara because in school, when they were giving us some training on how to deal with the children and everything, they gave us this story as the epitome of how to deal with children. I read you the Gemara. Of course, the Gemara is in Aramaic, but translate it into Hebrew. There's an Amora, a very Hashuv Amora. Rav, that's his name. He came to a town and it didn't rain. במשך חודשיים, 2 months, לא נראתה טיפת גשם בשמיים והציבור היה בפanic. Obviously, the Gemara doesn't use the word panic, but we're going to do it for our understanding. So, there's no rain. Now what? הם החליטו להתפלל יחד. They decided, let's pray all together. ומיד כששליח הציבור ניגש להתפלל, נעשה שינוי בשמיים. All of a sudden, you start praying the Hazan. You see, it's cloudy, it's misty, it's about to rain. כשאמר משיב הרוח, he gets to the Amidah. He says, משיב הרוח, החלה לנשב רוח. Ruach came. Imagine this. He says, משיב הרוח, the Ruach comes. וכשאמר מוריד הגשם, ירד הגשם. Unbelievable. They're waiting for 2 months. All of a sudden, they have this guy, he goes up a Hazan, boom. Now Rav, the one that came to visit the town, התפעל. He got astonished, surprised, unbelievable. מהגדלות של החזן לסבר, and he thought, כי צדיק גדול עומד לפניו. So unbelievable, who is this guy? Let me go get a ברכה from him. What a מקובל he is. הוא התעניין. מה מעשיו? So he started asking, what does this חזן do? והלה סיפר כי הוא מלמד תינוקות. So this חזן told him, I'm not a special guy. I'm a teacher of little children. I'm a Rebbe in school. רב שאל, מה הזכות המיוחדת שלך? So he says, I know you're a teacher in the school, but you got to have some zechut for the rain to come down. המלמד סיפר על שני מעשים גדולים. So this Rebbe, this teacher, told him 2 things. ראשית, number 1, הוא מלמד את ילדי העשירים וילדי העניים במידה שווה. I don't have any favoritism. וגם, and also, אם אין להורי הילדים לשלם לו שכר לימוד, even if you don't have money to pay, I'll still teach your kid. Number 2, that's number 1. Number 2, שנית, הוא נוקט בדרך חינוכית מקורית ומיוחדת. He has a very special way of teaching. בחצר הבית בו לומדים הילדים, in the courtyard of the house where the children learn, ישנה בריכת דגים. There's a pond with fish in it. וכאשר אחד הילדים מסרב ללמוד, one of the children don't want to learn, הוא משחד אותו, he bribes him, הוא מעניק לו אפשרות לשחק בדגים. He says, יא חביבי, יא רוחי, please over here, come, you don't want to learn? No problem, let's go outside, take a 5-minute break, go play with the fish and come back. And the child feels like $1,000,000. Oh, I'm able to play with the fish. He plays with the fish, he feels good about himself, he comes in and learns. כך הוא מפייס אותו בדרכים טובים וטובות לשוב וללמוד. So this is the way he brings him to learn. שני המעשים הטובים הללו, these 2 events, these 2 acts, these 2 episodes, הפכו אותו לאהוב במיוחד לפני השם. This is what makes him a beloved person in front of God. So let's repeat. He teaches everyone in equivalent, everyone the same. And number 2, you don't want to learn? No problem. Does he hit him? He doesn't hit. Does he get angry? He doesn't get angry. He has true savlanut, real patience. You don't want to learn? No problem, Habibi. Go outside, play a little bit with the fish, and come back. You see, as much as we don't think we are always educators. Whether we are parents or we are real educators in schools or in shuls or whatever it is. In any capacity, we are educators. We have to understand, for example, your child doesn't want to take his medicine, okay? They don't want to take medicine. No child likes to take medicine. Medicine is bitter or whatever it is. Now you have 2 options. You can't force it down his throat, which, number 1, he'll tend to hate you or dislike you and the medicine, and he tried to avoid it. Or number two, you can explain it in a very nice way. And again, this applies to parents, to mehanchim. And again, I'm no expert when it comes to mehanchim. I'm still learning, okay? We learn every single day. Yes, true, I teach for many years, Baruch Hashem, but still you learn every single day. I'm not saying I'm an expert. This is not the Hinuch 101. But there are two ways. The first way, or the second way, you can explain to them that the medicine is for them. If they want to get better and play with their friends and go to their movies or go to their games or go to whatever it is, they must take the medicine. Let's take another example. You walk in, and child's room is very dirty. Socks thrown over there, the undershirts, pants, nothing matches. Now you can't either yell at the child, which they'll resent you, they'll clean it out of fear. And a child should never be afraid of his parent. There's a certain fear that you have to instill in your children. But not the fear that, daddy's home, dakhilak, we have to walk on eggshells right now. We have to be very careful what we say. Otherwise, he'll explode. You have to be very careful. There is a sense of fear you have to instill, but not so much. But more than that fear, you can either yell at them for not cleaning the room, or you can say, look, you want to live in a pigsty like this? Don't you care about your health and your hygiene? Brush your teeth, everything that you can think of when it comes to educating your children or anybody around you. There are two ways of doing it. There is the way of Moshe Rabbeinu, of hitting, and there is a way of Rab. Now we're not, Hazz Shalom, no. We're not saying that one is greater than the other, Hazz Shalom, by far we're not saying that. But these are the two different mahalachim, two different paths, two different ways of hitting, or you can speak to them nicely. And this, Rabbotai, says the Rambam, is what Moshe Rabbeinu was mistaken in. You see, Moshe Rabbeinu, the generation that he takes out of Mitzrayim, they have the slave mentality. Slave mentality, if you don't hit the slave, he won't do it. You can't come to a slave and say, please, ya Ruhi, can you please build my house? He's not gonna. Slaves only understand by force, okay? That was the old generation. And by the way, if you look at Perashat Beshalach, all the way back in Sefer Shemot, the first year they left Mitzrayim, when they were thirsty, what did Borei Olam tell Moshe Rabbeinu? Hit the rock. Hit the rock, because the only way Am Yisrael understands is by hitting. But now, we have a 40-year gap. It's a new generation. They don't learn by force. They learn by speaking softly to them. And you think this story only happened 3,000, 2,000 years ago, whatever? This happens every single day. The generation we grew up in, yeah, I can say I'm an older person. I'm not so young anymore, right? The generation we grew up in is that we weren't always spoken nicely to. We understood only by force, by hitting. Not bar minan so much, but that's how we learned. That's the old generation. That will not work with the new generation at all. You expect that bar minan, if you hit your child, he's going to learn to appreciate you and respect you and love you. You are mistaken. The new generation only works with love and milim tovim or tovot. I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm the proper Hebrew. Nice words, gentle, soft-spoken words. And also with your friends. And also with your accomplice, with everybody around you. The old way does not work anymore. It's the savlanut, but real savlanut. I'll tell you what the Baal Shem Tov says. The Baal Shem Tov says like this. They asked a rabbi in the Gemara, Masechet Ta'anit, you're almost 400 years old. What's the secret to your longevity? Do you take supplement pills? Do you go to the gym every single day? Do you drink raw eggs every single morning? What's the secret to your longevity? So he tells them like this. Miyamai lo hikpadeti betoch beti. My whole life, I'm thinking about it. I never got angry in my house. So you get angry outside? What does that mean? Miyamai lo hikpadeti betoch beti. I never got angry in my home. Says the Baal Shem Tov, that's not what it means. I never got angry in my home. Outside I get angry. Listen to what he says. שלפעמים צריך להראות עצמו שהוא כועס. You have to show as if it's bothering you. Your child's not doing homework. You have to show. You can always say, okay, you don't want to do homework, so I'll take you outside, go play some basketball, I'll show you the fish. Okay. You can't always be like that. You have to show that it bothers you. However, אבל בתוך ביתו, שהוא פנימיותו, גופו נשמתו, לא הקפיד כלל. You know what the rabbi says? לא הקפדתי בתוך ביתי. I never got angry inside of my house. Not in my house, my structure, inside of my house. In my own body, which is my vehicle, my vessel, my body. That's my house. I never got angry. I showed as if I'm angry. Why? Because I need some obedience. I need some respect. But really inside, no. לא הקפדתי בתוך ביתי. Oh, that's the secret to your longevity. Why? Because we know stress kills. People don't do they're not following my orders. They're not doing what I want. As if you have to be such a hashuv person that people have to listen to you. Yes, you have to demand respect, of course. There has to be a line of diligence, 100%. But stress kills. Lo ikpadati betoch beti, says the Baal Shem Tov. Inside of my own home, my own house, inside my body, I never got angry. I have to tell you a story that happened around 60, 70 years ago. Now, we're only one day out from the Haskara of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Lechutot Hagem Ba'adenu. So, a story happened where in America, around 60, 70 years ago, there was not so much ruhaniyut. There was not so much spiritualism, yahadut, holiness. And of course, if there's no yahadut and holiness, what comes as in its place? Materialism and doing what you want. So we have a family over here that the grandfather lived in Poland. He was a very religious person, very observant. But however, the generations trickled down. His son wasn't as observant as him. And of course, needless to say, the grandson also wasn't as observant as him. The grandson turns to the age of bar mitzvah, 13 years old, and the grandfather tells him, tomorrow, before we go to the Beit Knesset to put tefillin on you, we're going to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the grandson was so happy. Yeah, I'm going. He has no idea who he is. My grandfather's taking me to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Unbelievable. So he goes and he runs to his friends and he says, I'm going to visit the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And his friends tell him, why, rahat aleik. It's over for you. Why, what happened? You know that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, every boy that is bar mitzvah, he tests them on which mishnayot they know. Bless you. He tests them which mishnayot they know. Do you know any mishnayot? Shema Yisrael. What mishnayot? They don't teach us mishnayot in school. But in yeshiva, they teach us barely. I don't know what they teach us. What am I going to do? It's going to be an embarrassment for my grandfather. I don't care about myself. But my grandfather's looking forward to this day. I have to hold his head up high, not give him any shame. What do I do? So I only know one Mishnah. What am I going to do? I only remember one Mishnah that I learned very long time ago. What am I going to do? So he prays to God. What am I going to do? The next day, sure enough, they go to Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, the grandfather introduces him. And he says, this is my grandson. He's going to wear tefillin today. But before that, we wanted to come visit you. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe turns to him and he says, oh, very nice. You're about to wear tefillin. You know Mishnah Masechet Berachot? And the boy says to himself, that's the only Mishnah I know. Unbelievable. Wow, yes. He says, okay, what does this say? He answers him. He says, and what does this rabbi say? And he answers him. He asks him even harder questions and more difficult questions. And he answers every single question because that's the only Mishnah he understood. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe Alav Shalom turns to the grandfather and he says, I knew you had a smart grandson, but I didn't know he was a genius. Unbelievable. And the grandfather, you could imagine how much pride and joy and how happy he was. My grandson, Baruch Hashem, look how much he knows. I don't know what was Ruach HaKodesh. I don't know what it was. But there's definitely an aspect of that, what am I going to do right now? I'm going to embarrass a child? Is that really how he's going to grow up to learn? Now, I don't know the remainder of the story, if he's a religious boy or not, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, if he's still alive or not. There's a story that they say, am I going to gain anything by yelling at the child, embarrassing him in front of everybody that he didn't know Mishnah? No, so I asked him questions. Whether it was a hunch or a guess that he knew which Masechet he was learning or not, I have no idea. But just to teach us, to drive the point home. We always say you can get more with sugar than with salt. Always. Being nice to people goes a very long way. Being mean and an ugly demeanor towards people, nobody wants to associate with this person. And we learned it from Adon HaNevi'im, Moshe Rabbeinu. Because Moshe Rabbeinu, he hit the rock. Because that's not what Borei Olam wants in our generation, at least in the new generation. Things don't work by hitting and by getting angry. You really have to learn the midah of savlanut. So now I read you what the Psikta that Rav Kahana says. Psikta that Rav Kahana says that Borei Olam tells Moshe Rabbeinu and Aharon, right on the onset in Mitzrayim, all the way back in Sefer Shemot, he says like this, Vaitzavem el Bnei Yisrael. He commands them to Am Yisrael. Go, you're taking control right now of Am Yisrael. Es the Psikta, Matzivam. What did he command them? It doesn't say. It says like this, Amar lahem, al tikru lebanai morim. Please, I plead with you, never call my children, Am Yisrael, rebellious children. Never. This already Borei Olam tells them all the way 40 years back. וכיוון שהקניתו על מי מריבה, ואמר להם משה שמעון המורים. But when Moshe Rabbeinu gets angry at Am Yisrael and he calls them rebellious, אמר להם הקדוש ברוך הוא, so Borei Olam tells them, כל עצמי הייתי מצווה אתכם, אל תקראו לבניי מורים, ואתם קוראים לבניי מורים, I always told you, do not call them rebellious, do not get angry at them. And now you're getting angry at them, and now you call them rebellious. Lift Am Yisrael, uplift them, don't degrade them, don't bring them down, don't embarrass them, don't ridicule them, don't get angry at them. Always lift another Yehudi, lift a Jew. Speak soft words, gentle words to them, don't get angry at them. Says the Ibn Ezra, he says, Yesh kam pirushim rabim. Very nice. Now we saw so many different explanations, whether they got angry, whether it was a sin of despise, whether because they attributed to themselves. Ach yesh bidvarai yahid. And I'll tell you what I think, says Ibn Ezra. Ba'abur she'amar le'Yisrael shim'u na hamorim vehem bnei Avraham, Yitzhak ve'Yaakov. They are the children of Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. You dare to call them rebellious? This is what you're calling another Jew? You're getting angry at another Jew? So what do they do to you in the end of the day? If you believe in Anochi Hashem Elohecha, you won't get angry, but if you get angry, you just transgress. Lo yeh lecha Elohim achrim al panai. It's ke'oved avodah zara. I see over here in a Sefer Likutei Besamim, he asks from Rab Simcha Kohen Rappaport. And he asks a phenomenal question. And this is the question. When Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking, ladies and gentlemen, who was speaking from his throat? You can answer. When Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking, was it his own voice? Or somebody was speaking through his voice? Hashem. Anytime Moshe Rabbeinu spoke, says, listen, Ita b'midrash, the midrash says, שהשכינה הייתה מדברת מתוך גרונו של משה. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't speaking himself. Every time he opened his mouth, Borei Olam, God Almighty, the Shekhinah was speaking from his throat. So he asks a very simple question. So how could Moshe Rabbeinu say, Shim'u na hamorim? So how could Moshe Rabbeinu say, listen, you rebellious ones? That means God put in his mouth to say, Shim'u na hamorim. Phenomenal question. I never thought of this question. Danny, you hear what he says over here? Ah, it's so good to say Danny. It's been a while since we did Danny. Everybody, by the way, in the video asks me when they listen to the class, who is this guy Danny? You're such in love with this guy. Who is this guy Danny? So you hear the question? You hear the question, Danny? If Borei Olam always speaks from the mouth of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he makes the mouth and the throat of Moshe Rabbeinu the vehicle, the vessel. So how can Moshe Rabbeinu say, Shim'u na hamorim? Listen, you rebellious ones. That means that God put in his mouth to say, Shim'u na hamorim. So he answers like this. He says, no. There is a Gemara in Pesachim that says, Kol ha'ko'es shechina mistaleket mimenu. If you get angry, the Shekhinah leaves you. So because Moshe Rabbeinu got angry, and Borei Olam knows he got angry right before, he says, Shim'u na hamorim, because it was boiling. His anger was boiling. Borei Olam says, oh, anger, I'm leaving. He leaves. Moshe Rabbeinu himself says, Shim'una Hamorim. Wasn't God that implanted the words in his mouth. And he says like this, Im nabihu shechina mistaleket mimenu ve'im ken. Therefore, kevan sheba Moshe lechlal ka'as, diberhu atzmo befiv ve'amar shim'una hamorim belachen ne'inash. So was God speaking in his mouth? Totally understand. Justifiable, maybe. Justified, yes. But if he got angry, Borei Olam exits, and Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking now his own words. We'd like to end the class with the short story of a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yosef Weinberg. Rabbi Yosef Weinberg used to give a class in Sefer HaTanya in the radio in New York. Sefer HaTanya, if you don't know, Sefer HaTanya is the Sefer for Hasidut Chabad, written by the founder of Chabad, Rav Shneur Zalman Miladi. We're talking about maybe 250 years ago, maybe less, maybe more, 300 years max. So there's a Sefer Tanya. It's a very elaborate Sefer, very deep, eccentric sometimes Sefer. If you get your hands on it, they make it in English, or they translate it in English, you should get the Sefer, a phenomenal Sefer. So this, Rabbi Yosef Weinberg, he had a weekly class, or maybe daily class on the radio teaching Sefer HaTanya, and he used the money that he got off this radio station, off this class, to finance the main center of Chabad, to teach and disseminate all the teachings of Chabad and of the Rebbe and whatnot. One time he had a very important question to ask to the Rebbe, but it was in the middle of the night. And there's nobody around. Now you can't just go to the Rebbe, right? You have to go to the Gabbai first, or the Maskid, or secretary, or whatever it is. You can't just go and enter the Rebbe. Middle of the night, he doesn't know what to do, but he has a very, very important question. And he knows all the lights are off and everything. So what does he do? He writes the letter, he puts it in an envelope, and he slips it under the door of the Rebbe. So this way the Rebbe, the next morning when he comes, he picks it up and he reads it. And after he slipped it, he realized, whoa, what am I doing? I'm going to cause the Rebbe of Chabad to bend down? That's not kavod. I'm going to cause a great saintly tzaddik like this to bend down and pick up the letter, but now it's too late. I already slipped it. What am I going to do? Okay, we hope, we pray for the best. The next day, he runs and he finds the door to the Rebbe open and he tells him, Rebbe, I'm so sorry. Please, I need to speak to you. I'm so sorry. I made you bend down to pick up the letter. What did the Rebbe answer him? He tells him like this, Ze bidyuk hatafkid sheli, leharim. My mission and project in life is to uplift people. Tafkidi hu leharim et elu shenimsaim namuch. This is exactly why I came to the world. I came to the world to lift people that are down. So what did I do? I bent down, I took the letter. This is what I came to the world for. This is what we came to the world for. We did not come to embarrass people, to put people down, to get angry at people. It's my way or no way. We came to the world to work on our savlanut, on our patience, on our midot, refine our character traits, speak softly and gently to people, speak in a nice demeanor, beseber panim yafot, try to always be happy, but for sure, like the Rambam said, stay away from ka'as. It is a midah that you have to stay away to the other extreme. There is no middle of the road. Totally to the other extreme. Be'ezat Hashem, if we refine our character trait of ka'as, and of course all the other bad character traits, we will live a better life, a more serene life, a calmer life, a more comfortable life. We will have, guess what? We will have people that will want to associate with us. Yes, believe it or not. If people that are around you, they know that every time they say something, Haz v'shalom, you will explode, nobody wants to associate with you. Or if they do, they're only doing it because they're afraid of you. And you could take this with parents, you could take this even with employers and employees. It's not healthy for an employer to always get mad at the employee, because you know what, believe it or not, they'll start resenting you and they'll start stealing on the job. Yes, they'll start stealing. Why? Because who needs this boss anyway? So we'll do what we want. He's treating us like garbage anyway, so let us steal. But on the flip side, If you treat them with kavod, they'll probably steal from you anyway, because that's what they'll do, but it'll probably be less. If they feel like they're worth something, if they have a value in the company, if they mean something to you, maybe they'll act differently. Ya'azarenu borei olam, that we always refine our character traits, and in turn we'll see Mashiach Tzidkenu, the rebuilding of Beit HaMikdash. We hope to see you all on Shabbat. We have a full program Friday night, Shabbat morning. We have a tefillah right after Shabbat morning tefillah. Around 11 o'clock we have a class. Hopefully you will like the class. If you can't make that class, we have the afternoon class at 7 o'clock. Baruch Hashem, please join us. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. If you would like, this class will go on Torah anytime, Ba'adat Hashem. Probably tonight after I edit it and put something on. Torah anytime. If you'd like to be added to our WhatsApp group to be reminded of the classes and to have some daily Divrei Torah or some announcements or some flyers or some inspirational quotes or some hizuk, please see me. We'll add your number to the chat. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.